Rest is so important, but sometimes our times of rest can be hijacked, and we can actually leave what was supposed to be a rest feeling restless instead of refreshed. So let's dive into why this happens and how to keep it from happening to us. Well, welcome back to the Teach for the Heart podcast, where we tackle teaching challenges from a biblical perspective. Why are we here? Because we don't believe that our spiritual walk and teaching profession should exist in two separate domains. Rather, the hope we have in Christ should change how we approach everything, not just at home, but at school as well. So join us as we explore both the spiritual and practical sides of key teaching challenges, integrating them together so we can succeed at teaching, glorify God, and make a lasting difference in our students' hearts and lives. This episode is brought to you in partnership with the Herzog Foundation. Today, I'm so excited to be joined by Sarah Humes, one of our longtime team members and Teach for the Heart mentors. Sarah, thanks so much for joining us today for this conversation.
Thanks so much for inviting me on. I'm so excited to talk to everybody about this.
And I knew I wanted to talk to Sarah about this because Sarah helped me out when we created Hope Renewed, and she went through the whole course and had so many great thoughts about it. And this is actually one of the topics that we talk about inside of Hope Renewed. So where this idea came from was honestly from my own personal experience, but also observing it in so many others. And this idea that there's one problem area in particular that can really hijack our times of rest, and that is our screens. These pesky devices that are so helpful can really be intrusive in so many ways, but one of the ways is that they can really hijack our times of rest, and they affect everyone differently. So this is not going to be a one size fits all, advice, but we want to kind of explore some of the things, some of the ways they might be affecting you, some of the ways they affect us, and some changes we might want to make as a result.
Yes.
So let's start by diving into some of the potential problems that we've experienced. So the first one that this is not as much mine, I'll tell you which one's mine in a little bit, but that we see is just too much time on social. So some people really, as spending too much time on social, can start to experience emotions like envy, insecurity, anxiety. Others, and this is a little bit more me, can suffer from like that endless scroll, right? So you're like on there, you're just like on and on and on, and suddenly you're like, oh my goodness, I just spent way too long on this. I do not feel refreshed. I do not feel rested. I feel very restless. It doesn't really refresh us. We think I'm sitting down to relax, and it just doesn't. So that's something to think about. Does the time you spend on social media, it can be a great tool, but kind of examining, is it leaving you feeling refreshed by connection and ideas, or is it leaving you feeling restless or anxious or uneasy or insecure? Has that been something you've ever experienced?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because I tend to use my phone a little bit differently than most people. I'm an avid reader. And so sometimes, even if I'm listening to an audiobook, I might think, oh, this is going to be so relaxing. But even that constant like voice in your head of an audiobook, or there are times when it's super relaxing, but there are times when your soul just craves silence. There are times when things need to just stop. There are times when you need that silence, and just there's too much noise in the world, and there's this Toon Blast game that sometimes can suck me right into. When I'm like, I just want to have a little fun that doesn't take a lot of energy. And then I'm like, oh, that was a lot of Toon Blast I just played.
Yes, yes. And so I've experienced the same thing. And so kind of the next two I had tie right into that, either relaxing too often with a phone or just grabbing a phone like anytime there's downtime. And what you said about like needing some of that silence, that is something that I really resonates with me, because
Mhm.
I find I struggle to create quiet time. It's like if I have quiet time, I'm like, I should use this time.
Mhm.
I should either like listen to something or, talk to something or, it's like I want to fill it. Some of that's a desire to be productive, but some of it is just habit, just feeling like we have to be entertained or we need to have something happening all the time. And I do think that those habits of always going to our phone, always having something on in the background, it looks different. Some people it's the TV is on, or like you said, listening to something. These are not bad things, but sometimes we can do it so often that it does crowd out that quiet. And we need that quiet to think. We
Yeah.
need that quiet to talk to God, to hear from God, to like allow his spirit to work in our hearts. And so I do think what you said about like noticing how it's affecting you, right? It's not wrong to play a game on our phone, but I think we know when it's like that was too much. That was not that good. That kind of got into the realm of unhelpfulness.
Yeah, I remember this time that I was teaching a room of 10th graders, and I had just read this study about how even teenagers are sometimes one of the things that they despise most in the world is being alone with their own thoughts. And I was like, no, this can't be true, can it? And I wish I could remember this study, but I had asked this particular group of students I was very close with, and I felt comfortable asking them. I was like, do you feel that this is true? And they were like, absolutely. And I was like,
Mm.
really? This is a great group of kids, very strong in their faith. And I was like, well, can we just experiment for a minute? And I set my timer for 5 minutes, and I was like, let's just all sit and be quiet. And they said it was probably one of the closest things to torture that they had ever experienced collectively. And I was shocked. I just did not even know how to respond to them when they said that.
Wow. That's that's really really something to consider. My goodness, right? Because I do think this generation coming up in particular, like a lot of us that are a little bit older, this technology came when we were young adults, but we didn't have it so much growing
Mhm.
up. Um, but the generation coming up, it's always been there. And I think that makes it even harder. But yeah, wow. That I think that maybe I know myself personally, I wouldn't say I'm afraid to be alone with my own thoughts. But you can kind of resonate with that a little bit in that, like, well, too much time, I start to get bored or I start to want to do something, or I think it affects everyone a little bit differently. But that's wow, that's
Yeah.
really interesting. So let's consider. I think we could talk forever about the problems and what this looks like, but honestly, it looks different for everybody, right? For yourself, it's different. Everyone approaches things a little bit differently, struggles in different areas. So let's kind of talk now about how can we, though, what are some things that we can do to replace restless habits with refreshing ones? And there's so many different avenues we could talk about to talk about technology and all that. But in this, we're just kind of approaching it from the angle of when we sit down to rest, if we're grabbing our phone and we're grabbing screens, is that really leaving us feeling refreshed? And just noticing, does it not? Maybe is this good sometimes but not all the time? So I think that's the first step, is just considering, how do these things affect you? Are they leaving you refreshed, or are they crowding out your mind and your time with Jesus and your space to think? So it's just starting to pay attention. When is this helpful? When is it not helpful?
Yeah. And I mean, even if you really feel like you want to do that, just make sure maybe you're including a deep breath beforehand or after, or, taking a walk before, even a 2 minute walk can make a big difference. So,
Yes, and I think that's the next piece, is I recommend just thinking about starting to pay attention to, if you haven't already, what things do refresh you. So, in other words, a lot of times when we have a break, we go like immediately to a technology. Starting to pay attention to, well, what other things refresh you? Sarah, you mentioned one, a walk can be so refreshing, but everyone's different. Some of you might be like, I can take it or leave it. Other time you might start to notice, yeah, I feel so refreshed after I take even a quick walk. So kind of noticing like what things that you do leaves you feeling creative or energized or encouraged or calm. What things help you reconnect with God or leave you with a more positive attitude than when you started, and start incorporating some of those. You don't have to do it every time. Like I said, we're not saying throw away your phone, but starting to incorporate some of those and noticing how it affects you. Sarah, do anything come to mind for you that you're like, yes, these things are actually refreshing for you?
yeah. So, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is I just I really try to make a point to talk to each of my kids each day. They're my kids are funny. And I love just, to hear what happened in their day. It is so tempting to just zone out and ignore the people we live with. And I mean, it is so tempting. And I don't want to miss out on the people right in front of me because of this little device that has been designed to pull me away from them. And I don't want to miss out on that. So I want to make sure I'm connecting with my kids and then my husband when he's home later in the day.
I love that. And sometimes I think when we have people around a lot, especially some of you have like a lot of kids or younger kids, it can
Mhm.
that can almost feel like um noise sometimes. But I love that perspective shift of just saying, no, I enjoy talking with my kids. I'm going to view this as a thing that fills me up and just be in the moment. I think the challenge comes when we're trying to do something and talk and it's all happening at once, which is saying, I'm just gonna be present in this moment. I love that. And when we were assembling ideas for Hope Renewed, we came up with a whole list. And once again, it's different for everybody, but I'm just going to rattle off a few different things. And one of these might be intriguing to you and go like, oh yeah, that actually does refresh me. Or like, oh, that's something I want to try. So we already said going for a walk, but I mean, hiking, bike ride, all those things. Maybe it's arts and crafts. Do you like coloring, painting? I am not an artist, but I got with my daughter this one of those diamond art things where you know just put the little things, and I found it surprisingly refreshing to just sit and do that and let my mind rest.
Yeah.
So that might be something. Do you play a musical instrument? I know that's something that I'm like, I play the flute, I play it well, but I hardly ever do it. And I'm like, this is actually fun for me. Like when I have 10 minutes, maybe I should go grab that and do that. Sarah, you mentioned reading and listening to audiobooks can be refreshing. It cannot be, but it can be. What other hobbies do you have? I had talking with friends and family, looking at pictures. I mean, there's the list could be endless, right? But that point is to start trying
Mhm.
other things and paying attention. How do I feel after this? Does this help me reconnect with God, with people? Is this a good way to rest and refresh? This episode is brought to you in partnership with the Herzog Foundation. The Herzog Foundation puts on retreats and trainings throughout the year to equip teachers to share their faith and grow in their profession. If you are looking for inspiration and encouragement connected with apologetics, athletics, the arts, reading, special education, or engaging with parents, there is a retreat for you. Visit teachfortheheart.com/Herzog retreats to sign up and learn more. That's teachfortheheart.com/Herzog retreats. Now back to our program.
Linda, I'm giggling here because I'm just finishing up Britt Hansen's book, Life is Hard, God is Good, Let's Dance. And I love his book because there's so many examples of like whimsical ways to have fun in that book. And I'm just thinking of, he's so lively and joyful and just finding ways to like be a kid again and let her, just let her guard down too. And one of the things that we're doing this summer, we're all, my kids are in their higher teenage years and my husband and I are in our 40s, and we bought sand toys. We're going to go play in the sand at the beach this year. Because we're like, what's something we miss from being a kid? And we're like, we miss building sandcastles.
That's so
So
fun.
yeah, just finding something that's like really whimsical and really fun and just like let your heart be light. I think that that's one of the things that we just miss when we're always stuck to a screen and we're always just in that, when we forget to rest, when we forget to have fun. Like play is such an important part of our lives and is part of the joy of the Lord. And I just get so excited about that too.
Yes. Oh, that's so great. And okay, that reminded me of two things. First of all, the Rise Up Summit, Brent Hansen was here last year and he's going to be here again this year, Lord
He's
willing.
so
So if you
amazing.
haven't signed up yet, riseupchristianeducators.com, free to attend. It's going to be awesome. And then second, I realized you might be listening to this and going like, does this have anything to do with teaching? Yes, because we need to rest in order to bring our full self to the classroom. So I just wanted to put that out there. This isn't just, oh yeah, rest, rest. We need that. And I think if you're listening to this podcast, you already know that. We talk about that a lot. But it is so, so important. I love that. So we talked about considering, first of all, how are these things affecting me? Where are the problem areas? Then considering, well, what is refreshing? What might I want to do instead, at least some of the time? And then number three, I think also a good thing to do is consider some tangible changes that can help. And once again, everyone's different, but for me, some tangible changes, some habit changes can be really, really helpful. So I'm just going to rattle off a few ideas. And then, Sarah, if you want to add any to this. So, first of all, maybe adjusting notification settings. Do you find yourself always drawn into your phone because you're getting notifications? Like you can turn off notifications on everything except the things you really want to be notified. I've gone through phases where I delete certain apps off my phone. This one is being too distracting. I'm just going to get rid of it,
Mhm.
for this. I love this habit, although I haven't yet done it yet because I need to buy an alarm clock. But having your phone sleep not in your bedroom. So it's not the last thing you do at night. It's not the first thing you do in the morning. Does require buying an alarm clock, but I don't know. I really want to do that one. I just haven't done it yet. Similarly to that, I think this one came from habits of the household, having a home for your phone. So a place that your phone lives at home rather than always being with us. So it like lives on the counter or in the closet. I go get it when I need it rather than it always being there. Screen
Ooh, I like
time limits.
that.
Go
It's
ahead,
kind of
Sarah.
old. I like that. It's kind of old school, like when we had the
Yeah.
phones on the walls. I
Yeah.
like it.
Right, it's there when we need it, but it's not always
Yeah.
there. Um, I've screen time limits is another thing. Like if you have at least on an iPhone, you can set limits where it will remind you, like, oh, you're over your limit on this category. Um, and then another thing is just taking breaks away. So saying like for an hour a day, I'm going to like make sure like maybe it's dinner time or like a certain time or like we're all putting our phones away for this hour a day or like maybe one afternoon a week is a no screen afternoon or taking a detox period. One that I thought was so good is the idea of in the morning prayer before phone or Bible reading before phone. So like I'm going to pray or I'm going to read my Bible, whatever combination makes sense for you in the morning before I reach for my phone. And let me say up front, these are not all things that I do. These are just ideas that are like so, and I wouldn't try to do all of them at once. But just thinking, is there one of these that you're like, oh yeah, that sounds really good to me. Like that sounds like it'll be really refreshing and helpful. Might be something to consider. Does anything else come to mind from you, Sarah?
Well, I have to say that my daughter, she is 16 and she so impresses me in this area because she recognizes what a whole technology, and this is like something that she has done on her own. I've wanted to be a better example, but there are times, we work with technology, and so sometimes it just does suck you in. And she downloaded this app, I believe it's called Opal, and because she actually is on a bus for 2 hours a day because she attends two different schools for her technical training too. And so she was like, Mom, I hate that I'm on my phone all the time when I'm on the bus. And she knew it wasn't good for her. And so she downloaded this app and it made certain things like her Instagram and her Snapchat not available to her while she was on the bus.
Mm,
And she was like self aware to realize she did not want to do that. And um, it made it a little bit more difficult to overcome than the ones on the iPhone itself. And so I really loved that. But I do have to just second the notification settings are so powerful. I mean, not only that, but it can mean so much to your family and your friends. It is so discouraging to me when I finally get together with some of my friends and their phone is going off the whole time we're together. And I'm like, we have been planning this for months and I haven't hardly seen your eyes. And so that's not restful. That's not what. So when you can just shut off all those notifications and pour into each other, it is so wonderful. Um, and there's lots of YouTube videos. I know we're kind of talking about avoiding tech, but YouTube is great for learning how to do stuff like that too. Um, it's wonderful to set those off. And I am also just a big fan of I like to work downstairs and leave my phone upstairs, because it's just, or just sit down here with the family and my phone upstairs, which sometimes does drive my friends nuts when they're trying to get a hold of me, but I'm here present with my family. So,
yeah.
and we don't, I'm in that mindset. I don't always have to be reachable.
Yes.
We've changed into this urgent society where we think everything's an emergency. Someone must be able to get a hold of me. And that was not the case even 15 years ago. Well, maybe not 15, maybe 20. I don't know. It feels like it's just moved so fast and it has moved and changed so fast. But it's really a wonderful thing when people can't reach you.
Yes. Yes. That's just so simple, right? Just like I'm just going to leave it over here for a little while. I'm going to be present. I love that. And I'm glad you kind of brought that up about like, we're saying like, we're not saying to avoid technology, right?
Yeah.
We love technology. Teacher of the heart, like we're virtual, we do everything online.
Yes.
And technology is, it can be so helpful. These things, and it's funny. I've thought before, like, I almost wish we could just get rid of these things. And it's like, but that's not it, right? And I think it's true of so many things in life, where things that can be a gift from God can also turn into, they can turn into problems. And so just recognizing like that idea of moderation, that idea of paying attention to where is the problem, and asking God too. So part of this should also be prayer, right? Praying and asking God, show me where the problems are, show me what I can do differently, to really experience the rest that He wants us to experience, both with Him, with others, in our bodies, in our minds, so that we can serve Him to the best of our ability. Any
Yeah.
final thoughts, Sarah, as we wrap up?
Well, yeah, and I just think that the final thought I want to share is like the whole point of this podcast today was about rest. Even though we focused a lot on technology, it was about rest. So, and I think the issue is that technology tends to distract us from rest. And so to like balance the two out, how is my technology use keeping me from resting and therefore keeping me from serving God at my very best in my teaching position, in my life, in my position and roles at church? Like finding how technology is stopping you from living the best life that God has called you to. And I think that does take a lot of prayer, a lot of consideration, a lot of seeking wisdom from other people, being humble, because it is when you get like schooled by your kid. I've seen that with my daughter, and learning from other people. It's challenging, but it's so worth it to be a little bit closer to the person that God has called me to be.
Yeah. I love that. Well, thank you, Sarah, so much for joining in with us. And thank you guys for being here. If you'd like the notes and links from this episode, it'll all be at teachfortheheart.com/350. And if you want to kind of dive deeper into what does it mean to rest, how do we teach with joy, even when things around us are like really crazy, might be feeling defeated, frustrated, and wanting to teach with joy, we would love to have you join us in Hope Renewed. It's a 5-week program where we kind of dive into scripture and kind of explore what does that look like to really trust God and to enjoy working with Him even when things are hard. And we go very deep. We do not stay on the surface. So I'd love for you to join us there. You can get details at teachfortheheart.com/hope renewed. And if you use the code podcast30, you can save 30% on your enrollment. So thank you guys so much for being with you. I look forward to speaking with you again soon. This episode has been brought to you in partnership with the Herzog Foundation. All views and opinions are our own and don't necessarily reflect those of the Herzog Foundation. Can't wait to be with you again. In the meantime, teacher, remember, God is at work in you and through you, and He's using you to make a difference. Keep your eyes on Him and teach for the heart.